Hey guys, how's it going? So today on BKRsport, we are here for the final round of Rugby League for 2020. The NRL has finally come to an end after this weekend. There are still a couple of teams playing for stuff though. You know, you got your Brisbane Broncos, you got your Canterbury Bulldogs, you got your Rabbitohs, you got your Knights. You know, there are still teams that are technically playing for stuff, but majority of the teams really, I guess the Tigers are still playing for their 9th position as well. Gee whiz, don't forget about them. But this week, these tips could be completely all over the shop. You know, no one's really going to be able to get too good of a read this week, unless there's like one team going up against another team that has a full team and the other one doesn't really have a full team. Like, it's going to be kind of difficult to get a gauge on what's happening this week. So let's just get straight into it and talk about the final round of the NRL for 2020. Arguably the biggest game of the round, the game that everyone's basically watching on. We are going to be streaming this game, obviously. Brisbane Broncos versus the North Queensland Cowboys. Now, obviously, you know, 5 years ago, this was the game that was deciding the grand final. You had the Brisbane Broncos and the Cowboys going head-to-head in the biggest game of all. Now, for the Cowboys, this game doesn't really mean too much whatsoever. You know, they've got a better for and against than the Broncos. So even if the Broncos were to win this game, they would need to win by like 60, 70 damn well points, which, you know, we don't, that's not happening. It's just, that's not happening. And the Cowboys can't go any higher. Now, also with the Dogs, actually the only thing that could happen is that the Dogs could jump them. So the Dogs they're playing the Panthers though, so realistically, we're not really thinking too much is going to happen there either. But depending on how much the Cowboys were to lose by, if they were to lose, and the Bulldogs, if they were to win against the Panthers, they could jump them into 14th place, and the Cowboys would go down to 15th place. So that's the only thing kind of on the back of the mind for the Cowboys in regards to this game, because it really just doesn't really matter too much to them at all. On the other hand, you have the Brisbane Broncos, who need to win this game. Otherwise, they will be last for the first time in their entire history. They've never come last before. You know, their fans have made sure we've been aware of that for a very long time. And now is actually a time where it's actually quite likely, you know, it's quite likely, unless they were to win this game, and they are at home, that's the thing. So if they were to lose this, they would get their first wooden spoon ever, also whilst being at home in front of the home stadium. But, you know, this is a hard game to read because the Broncos have actually had pretty good record against the Cowboys of late. I think they've won the last 3 games in a row of them in the regular season. The Cowboys won a game, I think, over at the Nines in Perth. But besides that, the Broncos actually have a really good record over the Cowboys. And it's kind of difficult to read this one because obviously the Broncos are playing for so much. Now, the Cowboys are their biggest rivals, so you'd assume the Cowboys are going to play to make sure this happens and to make sure they get last. But then again, you could also look at this as a fellow Queensland team not wanting a fellow Queensland team to hit the bottom of the table and get last, get the wooden spoon, and put a New South Wales team, which would be the Bulldogs, on the bottom. Do I think that's going to happen though? I don't know, man. I wouldn't bet on this game. I really wouldn't bet on this game at all. Both these teams could win. The Cowboys are probably the better team. I'd definitely say, well, the Cowboys are the better team. They score on average like 24 points recently. They can put on points on the board, and they did it against the Storm. You know, they did against they've done against a few teams, and I don't know. We could see the Cowboys romp this in, but we could also see the Broncos fire up for their final game. And I don't think that at the end part of this season the Broncos have been that bad. But obviously their first half of the season was just atrocious. So I'm going to take the Cowboys. I'm going to take it. I'm going to put a smile on my face. Do I think I could be completely wrong? Yes. Do I think the Broncos have a chance of winning this? Yes, I do. However, I'm going to take the Cowboys here because I know that they can put points on the board. The Broncos' defense isn't exactly great. Broncos do have a decent attack, and the Cowboys' defense is woeful. This could be quite a high-scoring game. But I think that if it does come down to being a high-scoring game, the Cowboys probably just have that little bit too much for the Broncos, and I just don't think the Broncos would be able to keep up with them in regards to the scoring. But I'm going to take the Cowboys, and I'm going to take them in a thriller. I'm going to take the Cowboys by 4 points. They could win by 40. They could also lose by 4 points, but I'm going to take the Cowboys by 4 points. Next up, guys, Friday night, we have the Gold Coast Titans playing host to the Newcastle Knights. Now, for the Titans, obviously, they've had a fantastic end to the season, and they've really shown that next year there's something coming. You know what I mean? They've started to get out of this rebuild. Justin Holbrook is clearly the right man, and they're currently sitting in 9th position, which for most teams, people don't want to become. You know, we've got the West Tigers, who they desperately want to avoid it. So much so that their fans are actually nearly wanting the Titans to win this, so that the Tigers cannot get into 9th position. But for the Titans, it's been a very successful season because everyone was tipping them to come obviously last, and they're not going to come last. They're just going to miss out on the 8. And if it was a regular season with the full spate of games, full 25 games, I believe it is, I personally believe the Titans probably would jump over the Sharks. But obviously it's not, and the Titans can't finish in the 8, so let's just forget about that. However, what I'm going to say about that is that the Titans, obviously, I think they've proven everything they need to do. I think they've shown everything they need to show in regards to next year, and they're not really playing for anything here. I don't really care too much necessarily if the Titans come 9th or 10th or whatever. I think what they've done already has proven that they are the team coming next year, and they do have have a nice core, a nice young core that is coming through. In comparison with the Knights, you know, the Knights actually do have a home final to play for. If they lose this game and the Rabbits win, the Rabbits will get the home final over the Knights next week in a knockout qualifying final. But if the Knights obviously win this game, then the Rabbitohs can't, and then they will get a home game at McDonald Jones Stadium. So I'm actually going to take the Knights here, just because I feel like the Titans have proven everything we've needed to prove. I feel like the Knights, they still have something to play for. They're still a decent team. Not that I really rate anything going into the finals whatsoever. I think the Titans obviously playing a little bit better right now, and really a lot of people are actually tipping the Titans over the Knights here, but I just feel like the Knights are playing for too much here. I'm going to take them to win this game by 6 points. I don't think it's going to be a blowout by any means. If it does, it just means they obviously wanted it more, but I'm going to take the Knights by 6 points. I think the Titans have proven everything they needed to, and we can move on into 2021. The big game on Friday, the Rabbitohs and the Roosters. Now, this is obviously a top 8 game. There's nothing really at play here too much for the Roosters. Obviously, it's a rivalry game, so no matter what, they're going to play in to try and win this game. You know, it's a game that they need to win for their fans because they really do give a shit about this game. Realistically, the Roosters don't have anything too much to play for. I guess it depends because, you know, they're going to want to play whoever they, get, you know what I mean? They don't care if they play the Storm or the Panthers. Now, the Raiders can't jump them into the top 4 because of the for and against factor. The Eels, if they beat the Tigers, then they would jump the Roosters if the Roosters lost this game. So I guess if the Roosters want to finish up as high as they possibly can, then they would need to finish third because they can't jump the Storm, and they would need to win this game against the Rabbitohs provided the Eels do beat the Tigers. On the other hand, the Rabbitohs, they've already locked in 7th place. The Sharks can't jump them. Their for and against is just not good enough, and they're 2 points ahead. So that doesn't really matter. The fact is, though, is that they can actually jump the Knights, who are 1 point better than them, if the Knights were to lose to the Titans. But the thing with that is, obviously, the Knights and Titans game is the game before. So if the Titans won that game, they would know they have a dead set chance. You know, they would know that they're going to be ready for it. They're going to be riled up for it, because that would mean that the Knights are already done with, and it's up to them to make the top 6 and to get a home final over the Knights. But if the Knights ended up winning that game, like, really, it wouldn't really mean too much to them at all about anything, you know, except for the fact that it's against the Roosters. So it's a really hard one to predict, this one, because for me, I'd want to see what that result is on early Friday to really get a reading for this. I'm going to kind of make 2 tips here. Like, I know this isn't real. I can do whatever I want on my channel, to be honest with you. I'm kind of helping you guys. Like, you know what, whatever. I'll do what I want. I'm kind of making 2 tips. On the proviso that the Titans beat the Knights, I'm actually going to take the Rabbitohs to win that, because I believe the Rabbitohs will get up over their rivals in a massively heated game, and I feel like they'll get over it to get that home final. But on the proviso that the Knights beat the Titans, the Rabbitohs don't actually have anything to play for. The Roosters are still playing for that top 3 position, and I'm going to take the Roosters. The only way this really messes up is if, you know, it kind of goes the opposite when I said this. You know what I mean? Like, even if the Titans won and then the Rabbitohs still, like, Roosters and Rabbitohs are still technically playing for stuff. So yeah, that's a hard one. I think, man, the Roosters are the better team. The Roosters are definitely the better team there. I just think it's really difficult when these teams are still playing for stuff, and it can rely on other results beforehand. I think if I was to go for a tip based on the overall 2 teams, I'd take the Roosters, and I'd take the Roosters well. But I think that the effects of the other games are really going to be a key point of this. But I think the result of the other game really does kind of mean a lot to this. So I'm going to take those 2 tips on the proviso, but if I was to take an overall tip here on who's the better team, I'd be taking the Roosters. The next game should be kind of quite simple. You know, it's the Bulldogs versus the Panthers, and although I don't really care about making a proviso kind of tip here, because I feel like even if the Broncos were to win, I don't think the Bulldogs have enough to beat the Panthers, especially with the team they've named. They've named basically a starting team, because obviously they have this, you know, undefeated record that they're still going for. I feel like if they didn't have this undefeated record still going for them, this winning record, then they probably would have rested quite a few stars here, because they've already got locked up. But I feel like they want this undefeated streak to continue throughout the rest of the year. And the Bulldogs, obviously, like I said, guys, with the Broncos Cowboys, the Broncos were to beat the Cowboys, and the Bulldogs would be on last on the ladder. They would need to win this game to go above the Broncos. And I know that they'd be playing for a lot. I get it. I get that. I get this game would be a lot really meaningful for them, but I just don't think the Bulldogs have that quality to get them. They haven't been necessarily bad. I think the Broncos deserve the wooden spoon. They deserve to be last, and that's without bias speaking. That's not with. I'm not making a joke here. I'm not laughing. The Broncos do deserve to be last this season. They have been the worst team, but the Bulldogs, they just haven't been able to find that 2 points. You know, they haven't been able to find that win. They finally got it over the Rabbitohs, and no one really expected it. But you know, I thought Manly, when they lost to Manly, I thought that was it. I thought they were done then, but you know, they finally got the 2 points to jump above them, but I don't think they've got another 2 points in them. I just don't think that they can get over the Panthers here, especially when they're playing for this streak, so I'll go the Panthers by 18 points. I'm going to be quite quick here with my tip, guys. Sharks and the Raiders. Now, you know, the Sharks and Raiders don't like each other. You know, Michael Leonard's clap, you know, blah, 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 blah. You know, they've got a rivalry, whoop-de-doo. Obviously, they don't like each other, but I'm going to take the Raiders here, simply because the Raiders are actually playing for something. Sharks aren't playing for anything, and don't have Shaun Johnson for the rest of the season. Shaun Johnson is obviously the key part to their team. Shaun Johnson is that guy that gets them over the line. He's got what? I think he has the most assists in the league right now. I'm not too sure if that's been changed or not, but the last time I saw, he had the most assists in the league, and obviously he's gone for the rest of the season, so don't back me in to tip the Sharks when we get to next week. They can't go above the Rabbitohs who are 4 against. The Raiders, on the other hand, they're in 5th place right now. If they win this, they're before the Eels, so they would actually jump into the top 4 based on their 4 against, and then we'll be backing in the Tigers to beat the Eels to actually have the Raiders in the top 4, and I feel like they deserve it too. So for the Raiders, I think they've just got too much to play for here. I'm going to take them by 14 points. I think the Raiders just are the better team here. They could honestly win this game by 20 points. They could win this game by 24 points, but I'm going to take them by 14. I'm going to take them by 14. I think the Sharks won't allow it to get completely out of hand, but in the same sense, I just don't know where their points are going to come from. Alrighty, Tigers and Eels. This is an interesting clash because this is kind of a battle of the West out there. It is at Bankwest. The Tigers don't necessarily have a good record against the Eels here, and really they're not playing too much necessarily. The Titans, but backing on what I've said, you know, going on the fact that I did tip the Knights to win, that would mean that the Tigers could actually jump into 9th though. And I know all the fans out there and supporters of the Tigers, you know, they don't want to come 9th because of all the memes and shit, and trust me, there will be memes, don't you worry, my friends. I don't think the club gives a shit, you know what I mean? Like, that 9th is still a better spot than 10th, so it's like if they have a chance to come 9th over 10th, they're going to take it. Like, they don't really give a shit about the memes. Eels, on the other hand, is still playing for a top 4 spot, but in the same sense, like, can I back them? Like, we've all seen the same Eels team. Like, their average attack, their average defense. Well, defense is not terrible, but like their attack has been shit out. I know a lot of Eels fans don't like this, and a lot of Eels fans still think that they're a grand final chance, but I feel like everyone else who watches this sport understands that the Eels are in a diabolical position right now, and they've looked this way for a decent portion of this season. You know, you take off a couple of their wins that are a little bit dodgy that a lot of people are focusing on, and they're not even in the top 4 there. Like, the fact that they're in the top 4 shows how weak this competition is this season. And although people may not like that, it's the truth. And if it's not the truth, then call me out in the comments. I don't give a shit. That's my opinion. But what I'm trying to say is that I don't feel like Parramatta are as good as their position on the ladder right now, and I feel like the Raiders deserve that top 4, but obviously this game doesn't have anything to do with the Raiders. You know, the Raiders, they okay, whoop-de-doo, you know what I mean? Like, that has nothing to do. If the Eels win this game, then they make the top 4. But I'm actually going to take the Tigers here, guys. I'm going to take the Tigers. I'm going to take the Tigers here. I haven't tipped the Tigers much this season, guys, and I really don't rate either of these two teams, really. Obviously, I feel like Eels are the better team, but I just feel like in this game, the Tigers might be able to pull something together. I think it will be quite close. I could definitely be wrong, and Parramatta could come out this and absolutely romp them. Like, they could absolutely romp the Tigers. So don't get me wrong. I know the Eels could, you know, get hot again for finals right now. This is a game that they could use to get hot. But I think that they're going to stay cold for now, and they'll probably end up having to play the Sharks in week 1, and then they'll probably beat the Sharks. You know, I'll probably end up tipping the Eels over the Sharks. I will. And end up tipping the Eels over the Sharks there. So, you know, although they do miss out on that double chance, I don't feel like they beat the Panthers anyway, so they go through the second week, and then, you know, I don't know. Point of the matter is that I'm going to take the Tigers here. I'm going to take them by 2 points. I'll take them by 2 points. I reckon this game could be that close, but I'll take Tigers by 2 points. Warriors and Manly. What do these two teams have to play for? I don't really know. I think they're 11th and 12th right now. I think the lowest they can finish is, if provided they lose this game, I think the lowest they could finish would be 13th if the Dragons were to win their game, which is a dead set possibility with the teams put out in that game. Obviously, for the Warriors, I feel like they somewhat class this season as a success. I know they're still, like in 12th position or whatever it is, but I still feel like they've somewhat classed as a success not to finish bottom 4. Well, they could finish bottom 4, but not to finish in those bottom 2 positions with everything that's gone on. So I feel like it's still somewhat of a success. They also lost a couple players here and there to go home. It's been a relatively successful season, if you want to think of it like that. Manly, on the other hand, you could not even make the remotest of arguments for there being a successful season there. I originally had them in first. Obviously, that did not happen, and I regret that dearly. I regret that dearly. And from what I've seen from their team, even when they had Trbojevic back in against Manly, against the Titans. Manly played Manly too. Against the Titans, I just think there's something going wrong at that club. You know, there's something going wrong there, and I don't know. It's been a very unsuccessful season for them. They would be really disappointed. I do think they win this game, guys. I am going to tip Manly straight up. I think they can also jump the Tigers if they lost that game. The Warriors could also jump too. But yeah, for me, I think Manly have a bit more to play for here. A little bit more of a respect. I feel like I guess in the circumstances, I don't know. I feel like Manly should win. They just got embarrassed by the Titans at Brookvale, and they're not going to like that. You know what I mean? Like, I don't know. There's nothing really to like about this Manly team right now. And, you know, I think Trbojevic is down as well right now. So that's the thing. I'll still take Manly here. I think they are the better team. And I don't think the Warriors are playing for that same amount of passion as they were throughout the season. And I'll take Manly to win this game by, I'm going to take a 16-point win. I'll take a 16-point win. Final game of the season, and it's a bit of an interesting one. We've got the St. George Illawarra Dragons going up against the Melbourne Storm. Now, obviously, you'd normally expect the Melbourne Storm to win this game and win this game really, really easily. However, they haven't named their first grade squad. Like, they haven't named their full starters. You know, they've got Brandon Smith in there, no Cameron Smith, you know, Munster's out. They've still got a decent damn well team there, though. Like, that second team is still pretty damn well awesome. I still think this Storm team could do it. Like, I do. I feel like most people are tipping the Dragons because of the outs that the Storm have, but they're not really looking at the fact that the Storm have still got a pretty quality team out there, and they're still ready to go for this one. And although they're not really playing for anything, I guess the win column still means something to them. I don't think Craig Bellamy's going out to lose any game, and I feel like a win from their second team would give them so much positivity as well. Like, obviously, they've already got enough positivity from being one of the best teams in the competition as it is and finishing in the top 2 for however many seasons in a row. But I feel like if their second team was to beat another first grade team, it's outrageous. Like, that would provide so much positivity for this team. Now, the next point that I wanted to make actually about the Melbourne Storm is that, and this might not actually truly represent about this game because of all the outs, but the Storm have been leaking points recently. Like, the Storm haven't been defending as nicely as we know them to do. Now, I don't know, there's no real reason I'm bringing this up now besides the fact that I just want to talk about it, but, you know, they are leaking quite a lot of points, and if they come up against the Roosters, are they going to be able to score more points than the Roosters with the Roosters defense, or, you know, the Panthers defense? I don't know if the Storm are going to be able to hold out enough points. I don't necessarily either believe they'll be able to score as many points as they have against those other teams they've played in recent weeks. So that's the thing that has a question mark over it. Obviously, I'm not saying the Storm are going to win the comp. I'm not saying that they've got no chance here. I'm just saying that it is a worrying sign with their first grade team. Their first team is the one leaking all the points here. So don't necessarily look for this in this game because there are a lot of outs, but in the same sense, coming into the first week of finals, they will be more than likely playing the Roosters, and that's going to be really interesting because obviously the Roosters, they know how to score, they also know how to defend, so it'll be interesting to see if the Storm can fix their troubles by next week because they need to. Otherwise, we may see them lose that first game and then have to play, you know, a difficult team like potentially the Raiders in the second week of finals. And just to throw this out there as well, the Raiders are a little bit of their bogey team, so that would be a very interesting game there, knockouts between the two of them. It would be, well, not Melbourne, it would be in Queensland, not the Raiders' home stadium, GIO, but it would be very interesting to see them going up against the Storm in the second round of knockouts. But anyway, guys, that's going to do us for today's video. If you did like it, please give a big thumbs up so know that you're enjoying this content. We're going to be streaming basically every single game this weekend. So obviously, if you're not subscribed yet, go down there, hit that subscribe button, and get ready for a huge weekend because we might not do those Sunday games because obviously they don't really mean too much and it just doesn't really matter too much. But we are definitely going to be doing a heavy focus of rugby league streams this weekend because there is no AFL as well. The AFL finals are next week, and that all starts with the Broncos going up against the Cowboys tonight, which should be an absolute banger. But anyway, guys, that's going to do us for today. Appreciate you as always, and I'll see you guys next time. Thanks for watching. Catch you later. See ya.